Let me tell you of a time when I was a hustler. A lot of people don't know that I used to hustle peeps back in the day. And it wasn't even for yay. It was for something worse. Cell phones. I know. It's the worst. I mean, if I'm gonna do something like that, I mean, I might as well do it for drugs. But cell phones? That was bad. So back in the day, I used to work for a cell phone booth that was in the mall, which happened to be one of the most aggressive authorized dealers in America. And anybody that's been in the cell phone business before or knows about the cell phone business and authorized dealers, they might know who I'm talking about. I mean, I don't even want to mention any names, but we were that booth where there was like always like 3 or 5 people, whereas like all those other booths that maybe probably had 1 person. That's usually the worker, if they were there. You know how you pass those booths and it's like there's nobody there working? Yeah, we weren't that booth. We were the booth where it was like there's always people looking and seeing what's going on. It's like, hey, you know what's going on? You know what? Now that I think about it, I think it was my first job here in Dallas. And you know, I got good at the hustle real quick. I would sell people cell phones. They didn't even know what was so special about it. I just told them it was special. You gotta get it.
Like, oh, okay, I'll get it.
It was like that. I would tell people like that. I was like, yeah, you gotta get it. You gotta get it. It's obviously cool. You know, I'm selling it to you. And they would buy it. They would just, I mean, I don't know what it was. I would just tell them. And even when people had excuses, I would come up with the most random lines in the world. People would be like, oh, I don't have credit or something. I was like, well, me neither. Let's get a phone together. Let me help you out. I would sell people phones, the same phone. They had the same phone and I'd still sell it to them. They would say, what's so different about yours? You know what I'm saying? I got the same phone and this and that. And I would tell them, listen, you see this logo right here? You don't have that, so you're outdated. In reality, his was probably better. But somehow, I switched them over and I got them. I was in deep. I don't know what else to tell you, man. I was grabbing people left and right. The crazy part about this story is that this was before like the iPhone and Android and all this touchscreen days, you know what I'm saying? There was touchscreens, you know, like those old like Windows phones, I guess. But, you know, this is all about having the smallest phone, the flip phone. Man, I didn't even have some of those phones at my kiosk. I would just sell them whatever I had. This was like barely when color screens were really coming out. It's like if you had a color screen phone, it was like, oh my God, like you're the man and your phone has color on it, you know? This is like when Snake was still like the best game on there. I won't forget this one time though. There was this guy, he was passing by and I called him over and I couldn't get his attention. You know, we're at a mall, you know, it's a busy place, there's a bunch of people going on, it's kind of rowdy. And I said, whatever, I was like, hey, nice suit. And he kind of like turned around.
Yeah, my suit is hot, you know what I'm saying? So I gotta turn around to whoever said that.
So I got him like that, you know, I was like, all right, he turned around, I got his attention. I was like, hey, it's like, what kind of suit you got there? Oh man, this is like, you know, all kinds of, I don't even remember what he said. He probably said Versace or something like that. So now I got him, right? So I tell him, hey, what kind of cell phone you got? And he's like, oh man, you know, he pulls it out and he's like,
oh, I got this cell phone, flip phone, really nice, you know. I got unlimited phone calls in and out.
You know, back then that was like a big thing. You know, if you had a phone that you had unlimited minutes, it was like rare. Like, I think AT&T was the only one that offered that at the time. So I already knew that was gonna be a hard sell. I was like, dang, he got some limited minutes. I can't match that with anything really, except for the cost. Because the cost for unlimited minutes back then was kind of high. I mean, it's still kind of high now, but it was really high then because you only got unlimited minutes. You didn't get text messaging, you didn't get internet or whatever. So he tells me, he's like,
yeah man, I got the cell phone, whatever. Like, you guys can't match it or whatever. And plus you sell AT&T.
And it's funny because my booth at the time sold AT&T and T-Mobile. So in my head I'm thinking I gotta switch him to T-Mobile because he already got AT&T. So I mean, I got only one option right now. So I told him, yeah, but you never tried T-Mobile?
No man, you got nothing that has unlimited minutes. Nobody has unlimited minutes. It's the only phone that got unlimited minutes right now.
I was thinking in my head, dang, what can I tell him, you know? I was like, his cost is high. That's where I gotta get him. I gotta get him in the cost. I gotta get him in the cost. So I was determined, man. I was determined to get this guy. And I told him, man, how much money do you spend on that, man? How much money do you spend on, you know, your cell phone minutes and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, well, I spent like about $100 and then maybe some text messages too. So it's like $100 and some dollars. He said something like $120. So now I was like, all right. It's like, man, if you looked at T-Mobile, I was like, you know, you don't have to spend as much. And he was kind of like, he's like, man, what do I go to T-Mobile for? I was like, I got unlimited minutes. You can't match that. You can't beat that, he kept telling me. He's like, you can't match that. I was like, listen, ain't nobody got time for that. You don't even use those minutes.
Oh, I use a lot of minutes. I use a whole bunch of them.
And I was like, let me see your cell phone. So I grabbed his phone and I checked how many minutes he has left because this is before you had an app that told you all your information and all your stats and where you lived and what your social security number was. You know, so I pushed in the number, I'm like, and tells me you use 1,200 minutes. So I look at the guy and I tell him, listen, you use 1,200 minutes. How many times have you used this phone today? He's like, oh, I used it a lot, man. 1,200 minutes, that's quite a bit. Listen, you can get 2,000 minutes. And it'll be like 70 bucks instead of like $100. So I'm saving you 30 bucks every month. And back then I could throw in a car charger and like a protect kit or whatever for free or whatnot. And it was the same phone too, so it's like it's not like he was losing any features really. He was just, I mean, he was losing minutes. I mean, I didn't care. I don't know what else to tell you. So then he thought about it. He's like,
2,000 minutes. I don't know, man. I have unlimited minutes.
yeah, but I'll be saving you $300 every year, at least. So then I used some Jedi mind tricks on him because it looked like I was gonna lose him. So then I told him, it's like, you need this money. You need this phone. He's like, yeah, the money's nice and the phone's the same. So yeah, I was like, yeah, you need it. You need it. And guess what happened? He fell for it. He straight up took it. He took the phone. He gave up his other phone. Luckily, he was close to the end of his contract, or else I might have lost him completely. But then I would have probably sold him in a way where it's like, I'm saving you like $300 a year. That like pays for the contract, blah, blah, blah. But he took it. He was like, all right, sign me up. And I signed his ass up. But yeah, I mean, that's what I did. I mean, that's what I was doing for a while. And, you know, eventually I started feeling a little bad, but not really bad. It was kind of more of like, I was just getting tired because I started becoming the only guy that was selling cell phones at that booth. So more pressure was getting on me, like, hey, you know, you're an assistant manager type of thing now, and you're not selling enough phones, and you know, the people I had weren't selling. So, you know, soon after I left, it started getting in the way of my school at the time and my DOA shenanigans. And I was like, you know what, bump this, I'm out of this piece. So I left. About a year or so later, that place closed down, and you know, I mean, I'm no expert, I'm just saying. I find it funny that when I left, it closed down. But yeah, I mean, that's what I did. I used to hustle people, man. I was just hustling people for cell phones. I felt so dirty. It felt worse than selling drugs illegally. But you know, that's behind me now. You know, I kicked it up in the Arizona drop, forget about it. But yeah, that's a piece of me that you guys may not have known about me. You know, I used to hustle people, but you know, I'm a good person. I don't do that. I learned a lot. You know, now when people call me, I already know the drill. This guy's trying to, you know, sell me, and you know, I don't fall for it. But don't get me wrong. Every now and then I use my Jedi mind tricks. I'll tell people. I'll tell Vanessa. I'll tell her, like, listen, this is why you need to buy me this Xbox. Listen. She'll tell me like, you already have an Xbox. And I'll be like, listen, it's not this Xbox. But you know, sometimes you gotta do stuff like that. You know, if you want something, sometimes, you know, if you feel like you gotta do it, I go in there and do it. But I try not to, you know, I try to be respectful, be like, all right, I understand. I'm not gonna bug people. It was a crazy time in my life, you know. I didn't know I was gonna be the DOA superhero at the time. I thought I was just a regular dude. It was fun. Anyway, I got a tournament coming up. I gotta get ready. Catch y'all next time.